Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Yes, the endangered Karkloof blue butterfly. What I forgot to put in here is flying high in Nkandla. I'm sure all of you know and have heard about Nkandla, but what you probably haven't heard of is this amazing long-term monitoring project that Nkandla have been managing for the past 16 years. And I'd just like to point out Dr. Adrian Armstrong. He's been instrumental in developing the project, and there are a good couple of people in the audience that have been the backbone to the project. And what I'd really like to do this morning is share the success of the project over the years. I know we have obviously presented before, but we've got to a stage now where we can actually say this project has been a huge success. Okay, so looking at the Karkloof blue butterfly, it's endemic to KZN. It's obviously found in the Midlands Misbelt areas, and there are only 4 known colonies in KZN, 3 of which are in the Midlands, and then we have an outer layer all the way up at Nkandla. The colony up at Nkandla does not occur within Nkandla Forest Reserve, but just a stone's throw from the protected area boundary fence line and on the Kube Traditional Council land. Okay, so just looking at the site. The colony site is there, just outside of the protected area, and basically this would be the P50 of 2, the tar road that winds its way up from Ishawi, through Nkandla Forest, and then out the other side and continues for approximately 20 km to Nkandla village. And this is the site, for those who may have seen it while you drive past. This is the protected area fence line over here. And this is the drainage line where we have established the monitoring site. So although we have the butterflies occur in these drainage lines and around the back of the mountain, there are a few sites. The focus of our monitoring really takes place within this site over here. Okay, so just to share a little bit about the life cycle. The butterflies, firstly in 1999, this is just a brief project history, and I'm not going to elaborate too much. I'll obviously discuss in more detail as I move through the talk. But basically in 1999, Mr. Don Quinn rediscovered the Nkandla colony of the Karkloof blue. In 2002, we'll get to that slide. Okay, life history, the butterfly. They emerge basically in March. They fly from March. April is when they peak. They're on the wing. They then, the males emerge first. They'll feed. The females then emerge. Mating occurs, and then they start laying eggs on a host plant, which is woods indigo plant. They lay the eggs on the tip of the branches of woods indigo, normally within probably the top 5 centimeters of the plant, of each individual branch. The caterpillars will then emerge, and they feed on the leaves and the stem, and then make their way down into the ant's nest, the Natal sugar ant's nest. And basically the ants take care of them, and the actual caterpillar has a dorsal nectar gland, which the ants then obviously feed off as well. So the caterpillar remains underground, it pupates, and eventually only encloses the following season when the adults then emerge and they're on the wing again. So it's an amazing life cycle. Okay, so then, just a brief history as I mentioned before. 1999, Don Quinn rediscovers the Nkandla colony. 2002, we initiate the first egg census. 2004, we have the Karkloof Blue Open Day to engage with the community. I mean, here Nkandla staff are out working in communal land, so we engage with the community. We then, in 2006, established the first fire break around the monitoring site. In 2008, we developed a memorandum of agreement with the community and set up a co-management project, as well as developing management interventions as part of the Karkloof Blue Management Plan, which looked at things like fencing, burning, alien plant control, and bush encroachment, specific to the monitoring site. And then again, late in 2008, was the upgrading of the tar road that ran through Nkandla. And what was instrumental in this is that had it not been for Ezemvelo's work on the Karkloof blue butterfly, this road would have been developed. Half of the site that we monitor today would have been destroyed. So what happened was, you can see, it's not very clear, but that is the gate to our monitoring site. Okay? Blasting took place right up to where the fence was. And at a huge cost to the Department of Transport to actually push the road outwards and stabilize it so as not to, the easier option, just eat into the mountainside. So we prevented that, and the road actually moved outwards. This obviously before the tarring, but I mean there was blasting. There were a lot of things that we put in place to monitor. So what impact would the blasting have on the Natal sugar ants' nests, and what could those implications have been for the life cycle of the Karkloof blue butterfly? And then last year we had East Toyota and Nishawi come on board to offer their support. Okay, so looking at the management interventions, as I mentioned before, a fire break. We needed the fire break because in these communal areas, burning takes place annually. So what happened was the site was being burnt annually, which wasn't good for the host plants. Being a resprouter, the plants in a single season do not grow sufficiently tall enough to escape the grass canopy, and are thus not available to the butterflies to a land on which to lay their eggs. We then realized we needed to initiate fencing, because in 2002, when we initiated our first egg census, we counted 250 eggs. The following year, when we went back, this all takes place in June, when we know the eggs have been laid and hatched. We went back to the site, and we found the egg count was extremely low. And what had happened was a herd of goats had come through, and they browsed all the host plants and ingested all the eggs. So this process started where we tried to eliminate all the challenges that we were faced, or that the butterfly faced. We then also looked at alien plant control in those drainage lines. There was obviously a lot of American bramble and bugweed that needed to be removed, as well as bush encroachment through bracken fern and the false assegai tree. Okay, so specific to the monitoring program, as I showed you previously, it's an extremely small site, less than half a hectare. The adults flower from mid-March to April. We conduct the egg census in June, and what we do is there are 3 or 4 community members that actually assist us with the egg census on an annual basis. And what we do there is we focus on all the Indagophora plants within the monitoring site. So every plant is GPSed, we measure the heights, we record whether the plant is in seed, whether it's senescing, and then we look at all the tips of the branches to count the actual eggs. So it takes an entire day. We normally work in 2 teams, one going up the one side of the drainage line and another one going up the other side. So the emphasis is obviously looking at the host plants, and then the impacts of fire on resprouting. As I mentioned before, the Indagophora plants growing on the edge of basically in and just adjacent to the drainage line aren't burnt every year, but should fires come through, the plants that expand and move out into the grasslands are burnt, and very often are not tall enough that they are not available for those butterflies for egg laying. So this is really just a brief graph that I wanted to show you to highlight. So 2002, the egg counts, if you look at the number of eggs that were counted, okay, and then I've run the hatched eggs in parallel, but you can see how the eggs dropped after those goats moved through the site. What happens was we had wildfires. 2006, we put in the first fire break. And what I really want to illustrate is that long-term monitoring, it takes time to change and to implement new systems. So what we had was, firstly, we were dealing with the local community, and we had this Nkandla forest just short of 3,000 hectares, and now we want to fence a tiny little portion outside. I mean, they were like, what is there? Is there gold? You know, you've got this big area here. Why do you want to come here? So we had to build up trust, and that all takes time. So first fire break goes in, we eventually initiate fencing. 2008 the fence is secured, so now we can keep the browsers out. And there too, it's quite funny, the community are saying, "Chief Isambelo, you put the Bonox fence up here, don't you know the butterfly can fly through the fence?" And we're like, "Yes, we know the butterfly can fly through the fence, but your goats can't get in now, and cattle, because cattle are also walking through the drainage line and trampling the plants." So it takes time. But what you can see, what is happening, there was obviously a lag time, but the management interventions that have been put in place have definitely improved the status of the colony within the monitoring site. And then also the difference between the two are obviously eggs. In June, when we count the eggs, some eggs haven't hatched, and then others are damaged and or parasitized. So this line could actually be a little higher. Just one more graph just to illustrate. We are definitely moving in the right direction, but nothing's without a challenge. This year we burnt the fire break, it was at the right time. We know the larvae are down, they're underground, they're safe, and I don't know how, but within the fire break in the upper drainage line, the fire came in and it trickled in, and it burnt the entire inside of the site. So basically everything within the fire break, and outside it never burnt. So, but it's not a train smash, because we're on the right way. So possibly next year our egg count will be a little lower. But really what we've learned through this and what we've achieved, we're doing the right things. Okay, so in terms of project awareness, we do the egg counts in June. You can't just let it lay low and wait till June the following year to now get community support and involvement. We need to highlight this project all the time. It's got to be out there, people need to be aware of it. So what we did is we set up a Karkloof Blue task team, initially to discuss and report back on our findings, but it's expanded more to chat about other issues. We have the smallest aloe in the world that grows up in Nkandla. We discuss grazing. We discuss fire. So there are lots of other avenues that we now use to get information out to the local community. We provide egg count feedback to the Nkosi and Nkosi Shezi and the elders at the tribal court. We provide feedback. We have Karkloof Blue Open Days. We have environmental school programs, media coverage through Zululand Observer, local coffee break chat. We've developed brochures in isiZulu that we hand out to the schools. We developed a picnic site and information display. That was sort of a plus when the road was being built. We managed to fit a lay-by in there to establish a picnic site. So there's ownership from the community. We've had the roof stolen. We've had the picnic tables that were concreted into cement stolen, but we've replaced those. We're not giving up. And they're there. In actual fact, when I met with the DOT guys on site, they'd say to me, "Sharon, don't tell me you want another lay-by." Eventually I was known as Sharon Louw, but we got it right. So for any birding opportunities, those lay-bys you see in Nkandla, if it wasn't for the lay-bys, you wouldn't be able to pull off the road because there are major V-drains on that road. So we eventually be getting there. And then again, East Toyota, obviously their support, and I'm going to expand on that now. Why we need that? So we have a management plan, we've got a memorandum of understanding that lists what we have to do. Okay, the burning, the fire breaks, alien plant control. What's important too is we need to involve the local community. We need to upskill. The community need to know how to burn the fire breaks, when to burn them, what the alien plants look like, why we need to take them out. But unfortunately, the way Isamvelo's budgeting structure works, when we get our budgets, we can't employ the local communities to, put the tracer lines in or to burn the fire breaks because the budget isn't available. So what happened in the first couple of years is Isamvelo's staff, the field rangers from Nkandla would go and we'd do all the work. So essentially, Isamvelo was doing all the work and there was no involvement from the community, which is not the right way to proceed. So now that East Toyota on board, we now have opportunity to pay the community members that participate in the egg census. We arrive there with our lunch and our drinks and community arrive there, they don't have anything. We've got to go and fetch them and bring them to the site. So just providing a simple meal, which we were doing as part of the team, is now covered by the little bit of money we get from Easts. So in terms of the equipment that we need, and also we don't want the money. We give Easts a list of what we need. They purchase all the equipment, and we just collect it, and it goes into a storeroom that's dedicated to the project. So all the alien plants, herbicide, the equipment we need, wages, paying community members that assist us during the egg counts, the open days. I mean, we have a simple meal. Just sharing with the community wasn't possible before we had the sponsorship. The school's environmental program that Mary's recently organised, you know, just the transport to the school, the prizes, the certificates, they're little things, but they mean a huge amount to those communities. Okay, so the support from East Toyota, equipment, protective clothing, and then the Karkloof Blue Art Competition, which we've recently run. And you can see there, I mean, the prizes, the 4 schools participated. We gave them some equipment to build. They had to build a Toyota vehicle, but it had to have a Karkloof Blue butterfly on it. And the artwork was amazing. You can see the little pictures there and the prizes. First prize winners get a trip to Umfolozi. They stay at Hilltop for the night. Mary's organised the Quantum. They're having 2 days in the park. If you could have seen the excitement on those kids' faces when they knew that was the prize, it was unbelievable. It makes all this work worthwhile. Okay, and then some really exciting news. Where's Noel? No pressure. Okay. Noel Koch, I'm sure you've all met, from Code Green Conservation, has come on board and is basically putting together a documentary on the project to take it abroad and source international funding. So that just means so much more for the little project that it started out. So not only can we focus on the monitoring site, but we can look at the drainage lines on the other side of the hill and get those, you know, get the alien plants out. Maybe put in fire breaks to include those areas. So secure those areas for potential sites for the butterflies to actually utilize. And then what we're also looking at is potential Karkloof Blue reintroductions. So what Adrian's done is he's modelled. So obviously we need sites which have the host plant, the host ant, and also it's very important that we have the nectar plants as well. A lot of the areas are either under beef production, so you lose all those legume species that they're reliant on. We've found a site in Lounge River as well as Truegi near Bainsfield, which are potentially good for reintroductions. And also in the literature, reintroductions are successful if you translocate the adults. So we've definitely put a lot of work into that. But first, before we look at the introductions, we need to secure the existing sites. It's no good trying to start up something new. We need to make sure that the sites we've got are well managed. So I quickly want to just point those out. So the start, and Sterling on Warunga, which Eznavelo has recently acquired. So this is where the Stoneleigh site is. And then the Bainsfield site, you can see in this sort of area over here. And both these sites have the host ant and the host plant. So it's very likely that a reintroduction would be successful. And then in conclusion, long-term monitoring projects require commitment. I cannot stress that enough. Management interventions, as in the case of Nkandla, have definitely shown that they work, but it has taken a long time. Stakeholder support is critical. If it wasn't for the support of Nkosi Shezi and the community, we probably would never have got this project off the ground. And if you look at the funding, Isabelo, with our budgets that are being cut, the fact that it's not within the protected area, using state funds outside of the protected area, there are a number of challenges. So financial support is critical to actually get what's really not major equipment needs, but the little bit makes a huge difference. And then challenges, irrespective of what they are, they can always be overcome. And we've proven this in this project. Thanks very much.